to the 6th episode of the 3rd season of the Detours in Music podcast. My name is Laura Rupel, and today I had the pleasure of bringing you an interview with Sandra Rivers, professor of collaborative piano at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, my name is Sandra Rivers. I'm the professor of collaborative piano at CCM, University of Cincinnati. I really was here a long time and worked my way up to where I am now. You know you love your job when Monday and Friday are no different. Like most people love Friday because it's the weekend and they hate Monday because it's Monday and Friday are the same to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
My first question for you is, how did you get your start in music?
Well, both of my parents were musicians. My mother was a singer. My father was a pianist organist. So I was hearing voice lessons being taught by my mother and piano lessons being taught by my father. And as a toddler, I would hear this all the time. And I'm like, what about me? I want lessons. And my mother was like, no. She may want it now, but you have to practice. And she's a little one. And, so when I was 4, because I just kept bothering them and harassing them about wanting lessons, my mother said, okay, your father will start you, but we don't want to make you practice. If we have to talk you into practicing, it will stop. And so at 4, my father started me, and it was wonderful. He was a wonderful teacher, and I loved it. It was everything I wanted to do. And so he was teaching me up until about the age of 12.
Okay.
And then he developed glaucoma. So, that's disease of the eyes. And so it was hard for him to work with me with scores and stuff like that. And we had a friend who said, well, why don't you have her audition for the Juilliard prep? And well, you have nothing to lose, but you can say you don't get accepted, you get accepted. So that's how I got hooked up with Juilliard. I went to the prep department, which was once a week, where you got theory and chamber music and your lessons and that type of thing. And it was amazing because just having lessons with my father, I didn't know about chamber music. I was only playing piano solo and 4 hands with my father.
Yeah. So
here I have to take chamber music. I don't know what in the world we're talking about. And Saturday, I go into this class. Phyllis Kreuter was the teacher, and here are these string players, and here I am with some other pianists. And so she asked me to come to the piano. We're going to sight read. Now, I have never sight read. I'm all 13. Oh, give me a break. I don't know how to sight. Can I take it home and practice and bring it back next week? No. We're going to sight read. And the violinist comes over, and he sort of looked familiar. And the cellist was a redheaded young lady, turns out it was Marcia Heller, and the violinist turned out to be Itzhak Perlman. He had just come over from Israel, and the reason he looked familiar, he was on the Ed Sullivan show. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not worried about him or the cellist, I'm worried about the score that's in front of me. And as I found out, the piece we were sight reading was the Beethoven Piano Trio, Opus 70, number 1, the Ghost Trio. Now, I've never sight read in my life, so how am I going to be able to sight read this? So we start, and of course I had to stop. And so Ms. Kreuter said, oh, come on, let's just try again. Let's try it again. Second time, same thing. I had to stop. The third time, and I will never forget him for doing this, Itzhak messed up. We know he knew how to sight, because he was working with Stern, and he was sight reading every night with Zuckerman and that whole crowd. And I looked over at him like, thank you, it's she says, okay, well, now you can take it home and bring it back next Saturday, and we'll start working on it. But I never got over that, and I never got over him being that kind, because I was just so embarrassed, because I couldn't read. But that's my start at Juilliard in the prep, and then from the prep I went on into the college, and it's been Juilliard all the way.
Yeah. Was it through the prep program, do you think, or just through the influence of your parents that you thought of making a career out of music for you?
It was just me. I just loved music. I loved, I went to regular school during the week, and then I couldn't wait for Saturdays, because Saturday we're at Juilliard and making music. And my peers were people like Emanuel X, Pinka Zuckerman, Kyunghwa Chung. And, it was just wonderful going to theory, going to chamber music, just interacting with people that were doing the same thing you were doing. We had the same thing with school and when we're going to have time to practice. And it was just a wonderful feeling, and it was very conducive to saying, this is what I want to be. This is how musicians live. Music is everything. It's wonderful.
And when you ended high school and ended the prep program, you said you went to Juilliard for all your degrees, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went, during the prep, I was in a public school. And then in the 9th grade, I got to go to a private school. I went to professional children's school. And these were kids that were on Broadway. I was dealing with corps ballet of the New York City Ballet. And, everybody that needed to just have time to practice, do your academics, and get out of school early so you could practice or, model or whatever, ice skate, whatever, if you were an athlete. And it was an amazing school. And Emmanuel was there, Pincus was there, Kyunghwa was there. So I saw them, 6 days a week.
That sounds kind of like the movie Fame in a good way.
Yeah, it was very intense, but intense in a very good way because we were supportive of each other. You didn't stand out. If you're in a public school, you stand out, what do you mean you can't do this or that? What do you mean you have to rush home to go practice? But we're all in the same boat. So you're not ostracized because you're doing something that all the other students aren't doing. So it was a wonderful, high school was wonderful. A lot of people, high school is not fun for them. High school was wonderful for me.
What made you want to stay within the Juilliard system?
Because Juilliard is the best. I mean, it's just, it is the best. And I think I was there during the golden age because ahead of us was Van Cliburn. A little bit ahead of us was, Perlman. And we had Horacio Gutierrez. And we had, it was just people that really had big careers. And the faculty was amazing. And you're in New York. You're in New York. So you have Carnegie Hall, you have, the New York Philharmonic, you have all the major orchestras coming in, the major soloists coming in. And, a lot of us, not me, of course, because I was a good girl, skip classes to go to rehearsals and see the orchestra rehearsal, see a major name, in rehearsal and that type of thing. So you're just inundated with the best, and Broadway, and just everything is there, and I'm a native New Yorker, so, I didn't have to move there and try to find a place to live and all that stuff. I was at home going to school, and it was just an amazing experience. I look back now, I'm like, you really lived through all that. You really knew all those people before they were famous. We were all just students together, and I remember Emmanuel going to competitions and, I was playing with Zuckerman and with Kyunghwa, and, it was just, you didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
You were just doing it. It was a natural thing to do. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to leave that environment either.
No.
Yeah. What is something you struggled with in your undergraduate degree?
There was only one subject I ever failed in life. It was German. That language, I can't fathom the language, unfortunately. And that's the one subject I failed in school.
What is some advice you have for younger students and players who things are not going expectedly?
Well, you have to ask yourself, what are your expectations? What are your goals? And the thing is, you can't look over at somebody else and say, well, this is happening for them, or they're advancing this quickly, doing whatever. Everybody's different. Everybody doesn't advance at the same rate. And the other thing is, you try to talk to people that you respect and admire and get advice from them. But don't look at yourself and say, well, I'm not doing what this person's doing. I'm not doing what this one. That is a major mistake. People, blossom at different times. Some people get things right away. Things happen for them right away. And other people, you have to pay dues. Some people pay way more dues than others. And you just have to realize that you might not be one of the ones that the phone rings and you're off playing concerts. You might have to just stick it out. But you know what? Perseverance wins the day.
Mm.
Perseverance. If it's really meant to be, if you really want it that badly, something will work out. But you can't give up. You can't be ready to give up. This is a very competitive world we're in. And if you want it that badly, you will stick it out. You will find ways to stick it out.
Definitely. Have you ever considered a career outside of music?
Oh, for about 2 seconds. I mean, I remember when I was a teenager and I would think about what is it like to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or, you know, now this thing with being a profiler and getting inside people's minds and knowing what they're going to do. That used to be of interest to me. And right now, I love fashion.
Okay.
I would love to be a buyer for a major store, but I'm not going to give up music to do that. No, I love it, but I don't love it more than music. Music is always number one.
Yeah.
Always number one. So, yeah, I won't be giving it up for anything else.
Yeah. I've heard a couple people, when I ask that question, they say similarly to you, where it's maybe, on my bad days, yeah, I consider this other thing, but it's never good.
No, and the thing that it's amazing about music, you might not like who you're working with or who you might have colleagues you're not that fond of. Music never disappoints. Music never disappoints. We're so lucky that we do what we do, and we can do it forever. I mean, you know, athletes have a lifespan, you know, dancers, and you know, you're not going to be dancing at 90. You can still play an instrument at 90.
Yeah.
You can still, you know, if you've taken care of yourself and, you know, knock on wood if you haven't gotten any illnesses, but basically you can go forever. I mean, I remember going to hear Arthur Rubinstein and Horowitz when they were in their 90s. No problem. You know, they were fabulous, you know? So you look at them, it's like, yeah, you can do this forever.
I never thought about that in terms of comparing it to other art forms necessarily. That is a good thing to think about.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's just, you know, music does not disappoint. It really does. I mean, like I was thinking, I was telling some students, you know, you may not like who you have to be in a chamber group with, but remember, it's the music that counts. At some point, you won't be with them. You'll play it with some people that you do like, but the fact is, learn the work, experience the work, because the music will never let you down. And we're very lucky to do what we do.
Definitely. Has your career changed focus? I know that you are in charge of the collaborative piano program. So when was that kind of decided for you?
You know, in school, in Juilliard, I was a piano major. And there was no collaborative piano department. And if there had been, I probably wouldn't have wanted to be in it. I was, you know, looking at the solo route. But all of a sudden, I had friends. I had more string player friends than I had pianist friends. And I started playing for my friends who were violinists mainly. And all of a sudden I was ending up going into every violin professor's studio playing for all their students. And I did mainly violin, some viola, and a little cello. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then when I found out you could get paid for doing this, you know, very little, you know, they had a budget. And you could sign up and get paid to play for people's lessons. So I'm like, well, why am I doing this for free just because they're my friends? Let me sign up and start getting paid to do it. And then that's how I was learning the repertoire. And I was working with all these amazing pedagogues like Galamian and DeLay and Makinovitsky and David Cerrone and cello, Leonard Rose, Harvey Shapiro. Viola, I would have been with Walter Trampler. And it was, you know, just amazing people. They all had big careers as either performers and pedagogues or both. And it was it was a learning experience without my even thinking about it, going into their lessons. Oh, Joseph Fuchs is another one. So it was really just, I was breathing all this education that I wasn't even thinking, but I was just doing this because I liked playing with my friends and they're, you know, and I loved the repertoire. That's the other thing. I love the instrumental repertoire. So it was just fun. And oh, by the way, I have to get ready for my own stuff and go into my teacher. But he was very understanding, and he knew that I really loved working with other people. So I mean, he tried to keep me on track with solo. But back in the day, I looked out and I said, well, how many Black female solo pianists are there out there?
Mm-hmm.
And there was Philippa Schuyler, who died, who got killed, and she was, like in the helicopter going to help refugees or something like that, and it crashed. And then the lady that made me think about going to the teacher I eventually went to, Armenta Adams. I went to hear her when she played in New York Town Hall, and I said, who did she study? Oh, she went to Juilliard. Who did she study with? Oh, Sasha Gornitsky. Oh, I guess he doesn't mind teaching African Americans, because that was not the case that you could just assume that every teacher wanted to deal with you. So I feel like, well, this is somebody to remember. I'm in the prep division, but at some point I want to go to college, and I know which teacher to try to get, Sasha Gornitsky. So it's like someone said, if you can't see it, it's hard to be it. So, they weren't in front of me, all these African American female pianists. Now here comes Andre Watts, but he's male.
Yeah.
So, but it was a beginning, but he is male, and men and women are treated differently. I mean, Leonard Bernstein took him under his wing, and what the rest is history.
When you were looking for jobs, were you always thinking that you wanted to work with collaborative or lead that program, or were you thinking about private teaching?
Oh, I never wanted to teach privately.
Okay.
No, I never wanted to have my own studio. I always wanted to be associated with a university, a conservatory. But I never thought about how am I going to get a job, because I was always working. And everybody will love this. Most people don't know this about me, but when it was time for me to graduate with my master's, my mother's now worried, oh, now how is she going to make a living? You're playing 100 solo concerts, making the big bucks. So she met up with another mother whose son was an oboist or something. She says, well, my son is going to go to Hunter College and take education credits so he can teach in the public school system. And my mother's like, yes, because that's safe, and the money's steady, and they get the summer months off. So she says to me, I think you should take education credits at Hunter College and see if you can get a job in the public school system. So I didn't mind going to Hunter. Now, Hunter was cool. Hunter College was a wonderful college, and I did my education credits. And this mother that she had met, who had she knew somebody in Brooklyn who was looking for a music teacher in the public school system, and it was PS 274 or something like that. It was in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn. I don't know what Bushwick's like now, but back then it was a war zone.
Yeah.
And so I got my education credits, and I went and I interviewed for the teaching position as a music teacher at this public school, and I got it. But it wasn't it was rough. The first elementary school I went to, it wasn't so bad, but then I got shifted over to an intermediate school, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And I had an 8th grade homeroom, and most of my students had prison records. They'd been, they were interesting. A lot of them were very interesting. And so it made me have to think, how am I going to survive? I'm not Bruce Lee. I don't know the martial arts. I'm going to survive. Because kids go to school with weapons, and when I walked into my homeroom that first day and I took a look at my class, I just thought, oh, I am in trouble. And so the principal's voice comes over the loudspeaker saying, okay, teachers, get up and put on the blackboard, your class's schedule. Oh, I'm not getting up. I'm not turning my back on these kids. Oh, no. I said, no, forget what he just said. We're going to do dictation. And went, Dick who? And I went, dictation. I speak, you write. So I sat there and I gave them their schedule, art, first and second period month, that type of thing. And then I said to them, if you ever need anything from me, my handbag is going to be here in this drawer of my desk. If you need money, ask me. If I have it, I will give you. But do not steal from me. There's no need for that. And I said, and I know the other teachers are assigning seats to everyone. You can sit where you want as long as your rear end is in the seat. When I was doing this teaching, and then I would go to concerts, and people say, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm teaching in Bushwick. And they're like, you're doing what? I said, I got to make a living. And Dorothy DeLay was like, you like children? I'm like, well, I have to make a living. And she's like, okay. But, so for 3.5 years, I taught in the Bushwick section, different schools, different levels of violence, but I survived for 3.5 years. And then it was just, no, this is not what I want to do. And then I went to Juilliard and went and spoke to Dorothy DeLay, and I said, I want to work for you. And then I played for every one of her students in the prep, in the college, in all the schools that she taught at. Like she would do a master class at Sarah Lawrence or Brooklyn College or wherever. She would take me with her and, would do the master class. And then she was associated at CCM. But she already had a pianist working here for her.
Okay.
So I was not needed here. But then that pianist got a job elsewhere. And so then she offered it to me. And that's how I got in the door, as they said, to the job here, because there was no instrumental collaborative thing going on here. This was strictly a vocal collaborative school in the collaboration area. So I came in and I came in a few days ahead of her each week and worked with her students so they'd be ready when she came in to have their lessons. When the pianist that was working for her here got the other job, she offered it to me, and I then became an adjunct and came in and was just doing her students. And then finally the dean at the time took me aside and said, we don't have a real collaborative department. We only have vocal. You got to have vocal and instrumental. Would you be willing to put together an instrumental aspect of the collaborative program? If not, we'll open it up, And I said, yes. I'd be willing to put together an instrumental portion of the collaborative department. And that's how I became faculty.
I guess all instrumentalists who've been at CCM can say thank you to you for having great access to a collaborative pianist.
Yeah, it's just, I thought I'm a very common sense type person. And my thought was, maybe you really want to do the solo thing, but the most important thing is you want to get out and perform. And every instrumentalist needs a pianist. So if you're working with the right instrumentalist, you will be on stage performing, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's very true. I think we just kind of learned about a couple of your detour moments, but do you have others that you can look back on and know that they really shaped where you ended up?
See, I never thought I had a detour moment. I just thought I had a way of doing what I really wanted to do, which is perform and teach. And the two, to be the artist pedagogue is so amazing because they help one another. I mean, you're out performing and then you can't wait to come back and tell your students what you've experienced and what works and what doesn't work. And then as a teacher, you're telling yourself when you're ready to perform all the stuff you've been telling your students, you've got to act on that too. So when they sometimes hear you like, oh, do you really do exactly what you tell us to do? Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think your end goal was always the same, but the path you took is what can be unpredictable sometimes.
And the funny thing is, because when I thought, well, I'm not going to be the big solo pianist, but a lot of times I got to play solo because I was collaborating. For example, I was working with Joshua Bell and he was asked, he was going to do mostly Mozart, play with the orchestra, but they wanted him to do a pre-concert recital. And he said, I don't want to do the whole, it was only going to be like a half hour before the concert. He said, I don't want to play a whole half hour. Would you like to play some solo? Or, oh, yes, thank you. Things like that have happened. Like I've gone on tour with chamber groups and they said, well, we think you should do a solo. Okay, I'll do a solo.
Yeah.
Give you guys a rest.
Yep, you're always ready.
Yeah, it was just like, you're not playing you're not playing a solo recital, which is not what I'm aiming to do. I like doing the chamber thing, and then occasionally I get to play solo. That's wonderful.
Do you have goals for your studio or field of collaborative?
My goal is to try to mentor the students to be the best that they can be, because sometimes they come in thinking they want to do one thing, and I'm like, well, is that the only thing you're interested in? Maybe, especially with doing a cognate. You come in, I'm a piano major, I'm a violin major. How about a minor? What's your minor going to be? Maybe you should look into arts administration. You can't, in this world, you have to be versatile. There's no such thing as not being able to do too many things. If you can do them well, now you can't do anything badly. But there are some people that I never thought about that, but arts administration makes sense because everything is to make you think about how you can make yourself relevant in this day and time. And it gets more and more competitive. It was difficult when I was coming up. Now it's ridiculous. Now it really is ridiculous. I'm so glad I don't have to put myself out there now because the computer and I do not get along. So if I had to do everything through a computer, I would be in trouble. I really would. Of course, I'm sure I would figure it out.
One thing you mentioned earlier, talking about always being in conversation with people you respect, or trying to get in conversations with mentors, and that's something I feel like that has really benefited me through this. Is yes, I have listeners that are listening to what you have to say, but I get to firsthand listen to what you have to say.
Before COVID, obviously, when CSO has major people come to town to play, I'll never forget the time Martin First, the clarinetist, came, and I was excited, and I saw all these clarinetists backstage, and I said, well, I'm going to go up and speak to him and ask him about circular breathing. And he knows I'm not a clarinetist. Let's see how he treats me. He was so wonderful. I went to I'm going to ask him anything. Just, he's ready to share everything he knows about playing clarinet with you. Jump at this opportunity. And that's the sort of thing when students go to concerts and not go backstage. I can't get over that. How can you go to a concert? This is somebody you respect. This is somebody you've admired over the years. Listen to all their recordings. They're here, they're live. Why aren't you going back and asking them questions? Very few people would not be thrilled to give young people their advice. You don't get that opportunity every day. So grab it.
Definitely.
Grab it.
And I think a lot of students assume that the people we look up to wouldn't want to talk to us or wouldn't want to share, but
you will know very quickly if somebody's open to speaking to you or not. Most of the time they are.
Yeah.
First of all, it's good for their ego. People are asking them, how do you do this and what's your idea about doing this or that? Makes you feel good.
Exactly. And it never hurts to ask. So
it never hurts to ask. Never hurts to ask. Where Haydn says, there was no one near to confuse me, so I was forced to become original. Oh, that's all I felt. There was no one to show me the way to do what I wanted to do. So I just used my own common sense and figured out a way to get to where I am. And then number 21 is Virgil Thompson says, I've never known a musician who regretted being one. Whatever deceptions life may have in store for you, music itself is not going to let you down. So true. People will let you down. There are situations that might let you down. The music will not let you down. You can always rely on music, making music.
It's a beautiful thing we get to do.
Yeah, we are so lucky. And people will tell you that people who are not musicians but who love music will tell you you are so lucky that you do what you do.
Well, I had just a great time listening to your stories.
It's so sweet of you to ask me to do this because it makes me stop and think about you, and then I'm really happy about my life. Great. Laura, this has been such a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me as well. I really enjoyed getting to sit down with Professor Rivers and discuss a lot about her life and her career. One of the things she mentioned in passing that really stuck with me was that a reason that she knows that she loves her job is that Monday and Friday feel the same. And I thought that was actually quite profound because, at least for me, when I look at my future, the idea of a 9-to-5 job or having strict cutoff hours for my work is really appealing because since the arts are kind of a hobby project or just we're always seeking perfection but we'll never get it, I think for me it can be hard to feel like you're never done or you could never turn off for the day or clock out of work. So I think her concept of loving each day an equal amount, that is actually something that we maybe have more power over than other careers where they do clock in and out and it's mindless. Maybe we get to fully invest ourselves and feel the joy and reap the benefits from that. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, there are multiple ways you can do so. First of all, you can go to our website, which is detoursinmusicpodcast.weebly.com. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, also called Detours in Music Podcast. We also have a Facebook page and Instagram account where you can like and follow us. The Detours in Music Podcast is available everywhere that you listen to podcasts, but on Apple Music podcast apps, you can subscribe and rate us. If you ever want to get in touch with me and give more direct feedback, you can email me at detoursinmusicpodcast@gmail.com. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you catch the next one.